Hello. Judging by many of the comments under my videos, I could see a lot of people are very concerned about our civilization here in the United Kingdom or in America being taken over by an alien culture. In this case, it's Islam. 400 years ago, it was Catholicism, by the way. That's why no British monarch can be a Catholic by law. And I don't know if this rule still stands, but no one in line for the throne can marry a Catholic either. I mean, they can marry, but then they lose their right of succession. Anyway, it's Islam today. And the thing that frightens most people about Islam is its intense conformity to one particular creed and way of doing things. It causes trouble in Islam as well, by the way, this drive for conformity, because there are two main branches and they each think they have the right way, and they so strongly believe in this conformity that they're prepared to kill each other to enforce whichever conformity they happen to support. But that's another subject for discussion. So at the moment, we're worried about our culture being, swamped by another one. But we have to remember what we're so concerned about. It's no good saying my culture is being swamped by another culture and then not knowing what your culture is. Now, everyone knows about Game of Thrones throughout Britain and America and, I don't know, for all I know, in other countries in the world. But that's not so much our culture. That's a fashion. It will go after a while. What I'm talking about are the roots of our basic assumptions and what we know about the world based on the foundations, the basic building blocks of the language we speak and the music behind it. And that's what gives us that's our rock. And that's why when, for instance, when ISIS was taking over huge swathes of the Middle East, the first thing it did was it destroyed what it could of any historical record of anything that had come before, because it wanted to remove that rock from the people who were living there. Now, we've also got those rocks here in our Western culture, but we're not being taught them in school anymore. We're not discussing them. I don't think the education system or the media remind people half enough of the cultural heritage we would lose if we were submerged into another cultural heritage. So I thought of looking at a few pieces of art occasionally and discussing them. And since literature is my thing, I thought of discussing the occasional poems. So that's what I'm going to do now. I was going to start with a Shakespeare sonnet, but then I thought, hey, it's Pride Month. Why don't I discuss a poem that was written by someone who was probably a homosexual? So I'm going to start with a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins. I think I might have mentioned Hopkins before in another video, but I don't believe I went into his poetry in detail. Gerard Manley Hopkins lived in the 19th century. He was born an Anglican, but converted to Catholicism and became a priest. He occasionally lived in a monastery, but not always. The reason I say he was probably a homosexual is, oh, by the way, I'm calling him a homosexual because at that time, that was the nicest word used to describe that particular sexual orientation. There were other expressions, and none of them were at all complimentary. And the reason I say he was probably homosexual is because he never admitted to it, even to himself, let alone to anyone else. He got very depressed about himself generally, and he made reference in his diaries to what he called the old trouble, which seems to be dreams of a nature which disturbed him and must have given him some sort of sexual stimulation. But he spent his whole adult life, which by the way didn't last that long, he was only 44 years old when he died, he spent his whole adult life trying to fit himself into the uniformity of the Catholic Church and his Jesuit teaching, and into conformity with the faith, and the strain probably killed him. His poetry, though, was highly unconventional, which is sort of odd, and he spent a lot of time trying to squash his wish to write it because he believed it was distracting him from his spirituality, his true spirituality. If ever there was a man totally screwed by religion, it was Gerard Manley Hopkins. And yet, ironically enough, it was that contradiction which gave his poetry such originality and power. And the one I'm going to read to you is only 11 lines long, and it's called Pied Beauty, and it's a celebration of all that's different in the world. At the end of the poem, he talks about the perfection and the changelessness of God. That's his ideal. But it's his poem about the differences in creation that make it interesting, not the perfection of God. That's the final lines, but if the whole poem were about that, it would be as boring as all hell. It's ironic that he was so different himself and couldn't recognise it as a gift. A burdensome gift, no doubt, but a gift nonetheless. There are a couple of words in the poem which we don't use today, so I'll pre-warn you of them. The word pied in the name of the poem means part-coloured, as in the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who wore clothes made of two colours. And the jester in A Pack of Cards, he's wearing a pied costume as well. Also, there's another word that's fallen out of use, and that's brinded, which is basically the same as pied, that is, spotted or part-coloured. So, here's the poem. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple colour, as a brinded cow, for rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire cold chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow and plough, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim, all things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift slow, sweet sour, a dazzle, dim. He fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe, and if you wish to donate, click the Subscribe Star link where you can make a one-off payment or set up a regular contribution, or I have a PayPal account at grannyopteryx@gmail.com. Till next time.